This is Ambazonia Calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorials. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoyn, Herbert, and I bring revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of Ambazonia and fellow Ambazonians on Ground Zero and across the globe.
The bludgeoning of the regime by the Ambazonian resistance and resilience.
I'm going to kill me for now.
Eli Smith, the wolf in sheepskin that pretended he was a justice crusader until he got his 30 pieces of silver. I am innocent here.
Who will or should you believe? The international community, the Swiss government themselves, or Eli Smith and his band of enablers? This is Divine Angel.
My country people, I salute one. This one atapanga evotanku. The message today be very clear. We will kill any internal threat.
Our fighting men and women, outnumbered, outgunned, have exercised the highest restraint. This is Dr. Cho Ayaba.
Hello, house na Commander Lion from Sir. Da ADF people them, they don't come attack all my picking them. Attack me, they don't bomb we houses them.
Someone has to say it. Enough of the saber rattling from AGOF leader Cho Ayaba. This is Tani Jude Agua Ozugen.
Can Colonel Yaoundé succeed in his attempt at dodging and or running away from sitting on the table with Ambazonia? Confusion therefore be compound. This is Manjun Jurambe.
Government, you make mistake. Any man will make mistake. Until God name beg una forgive government for his mistake in Africa.
Not bitter enough could be code for Ambazonians have not been slaughtered in numbers high enough to make independence the only option left. This is Lambert Bomb.
The first night was horrible. They just kept me no questions really. The first question was just, so what the hell are you doing in Yaoundé?
Freedom. Ambazonian united for freedom. That's my cry. Hello everyone, my name is Chloe Ann.
This is edition 070 of Ambazonia Calling, coming to you this first day of December 2019.
Oh, freedom, freedom is coming, freedom is coming, freedom is coming, oh yes, I know.
It is a new day in a brand new month of December of 5 Saturdays, 5 Sundays, and 5 Mondays.
Making me to see this day.
We've got one heck of a program lined up for you today. We've got a series of reports and statements on the second anniversary of the war declared against Ambazonia by La République du Cameroun. We've got a 3-part series of commentaries on the Swiss-led mediation process. And one of our reporters goes out today with a baseball bat for a smackdown on all those propagating Amba on Amba war.
Freedom, freedom, freedom. Ambazonian united for freedom. That's my cry. That's just what I want. Today, the day that President Paul Biya of La République of Cameroon declared a war on us because they have been trying to colonize us for plus 50 years. We must regain our identity and restore our total restoration. And we are going to ask for reparation plus interest. Hello everyone, my name is Chloe Ann.
Terrorists claiming to belong to a secessionist movement have launched repeated attacks against Cameroon. I have made all necessary security arrangements to hunt down and take out these criminals.
We must win this battle. No retreat, no surrender. Today is not a day of celebration, but it's a day of reflection, of repentance for us all to call on the name of God to join us and fight this battle. One love, one spirit, unto total independence. My name is Chloe Ann.
Ambazonian restoration forces, their beating drums of war, celebrating their steadfastness, resilience, their battle readiness, their growth in numbers and professionalism 2 years after Mr. Biya declared war on southern Cameroon on the 30th of November 2017. 2 years into the war in Ambazonia, and not a single debate before the House of the National Assembly, not a single debate before the House of Senate, except occasionally the brilliance of one parliamentarian taken to the floor, the case of Honorable Joseph Weber, and now the case of the senator from Balikumbat struggling to take the floor to tell his fellow senators of the horrors of war in the northern region of Ambazonia. As in the case with Honorable Joseph Weber, he's met with jeers and boos, banging of tables, and demands that he cede the podium to someone else. A Senate and Senate colleagues who want the genocide in Ambazonia to continue and definitely do not want parliamentarians from southern Cameroon speaking up.
I'm talking as somebody who is living by grace of God. Living is a privilege.
I'm the one who speaks now. Will you give me the microphone?
I don't know whom you...
They have given me the microphone.
Nobody has given you the microphone. Let me land. I'm on my feet. I'm a representative of the people. Could you allow me land, sir? You are a senator like me. Let me land. Could you allow me land? I have not landed yet with my questions. Could you allow me land? I'm living from a region. Let me share my difficulties with you. I'm not living a normal life of a senator in my region. I'm internally displaced. And I move over. Living is a privilege. And to die is a rule in the Northwest and Southwest region. That's why we are all becoming internally displaced. Dear senators, we have situations whereby there are administrators, they are giving a report of what happens in the field. And they tell the military, I like Cameroonians to see you acting the way you act. But I'm talking to, we come from all the entire country. And it's my duty to inform my colleagues what is happening to my region. We have a situation, he says to the military, il faut continuer avec le ratissage. That ratissage means destroy everything to the ground level. That's why you have destruction of value. Il faut continuer avec le ratissage. We have a situation in Noni where people dug a grave. And they were asked to enter into it, and they were shot dead and buried inside a grave. A whole village in Bamukumbi, Balikuma subdivision, has been razed down. Balikumbat, where I come from, a quarter was swept by fire, and somebody escaping from fire was shot and thrown into the fire. A whole quarter was brought down. I wrote complaint about the military, and I was told that if they don't investigate, what will I do? In Batu, after killing a lady, a landmine was placed under the corpse. And when the family came to take the corpse for burial, it exploded, killing more and wounding others. That's the situation we're living in the Northwest region. And it is important for me to let my colleague senators understand. Very important.
Show me the love for once and now and never. Show me the love for once and now and never. Show me the love for once and now and never. Where is the genuine love as a true friend and brother?
Those who fight for freedom and run away shall live to fight another day, says Bob Marley, my big brother.
On the occasion of the second anniversary of the declaration of war against Ambazonia, the Ambazonia Coalition Team Act has just issued this statement. It is titled, Negotiations Leading to Sovereignty Restoration or Resistance Forever. On this day, 2 years ago, La République du Cameroun, independent from France on the 1st of January 1960, issued a televised declaration of war on southern Cameroons, aka Ambazonia, independent from Britain, on 1st October 1961. To justify the mass slaughter that followed, southern Cameroonians, aka Ambazonians, were described as dogs, roaches, enemies within, worse than Boko Haram terrorists, and other dehumanizing terms. The declaration forced a pro-independence restoration movement, founded on the force of argument, not the argument of force, into a war it hates, but wages in self-defense and in order to put an end to colonial domination.
On this third anniversary, the Ambazonia Coalition Team, ACT, the broadest coalition of pro-independence restoration movements, and their self-defense KUPE military wings, reaffirms its commitment and good faith toward a negotiated settlement under the Swiss-led mediation process. We do so fully aware of the bad faith of and continuous efforts by La République du Cameroun to disrupt this process, even as preparations near the next phase-to-phase phase of talks on talks. We do so because we are keen to end the humanitarian disaster unfolding in Ambazonia, appropriately described by some human rights activists as another Rwanda genocide in slow motion. We do so thankful for the publicly declared support of the United Nations, the African Union, the European Union, the Commonwealth of Nations, the government of the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada to the process. Ambazonia Coalition Team urges the rest of the free world to throw their support behind this process. On this second anniversary of the war, ACT reiterates its demand that Mr. Biya should pull his terrorist forces and colonial administration out of Ambazonia. We call on him to release all political prisoners and prisoners of war, that an end be put to the provocation of organizing colonial elections in Ambazonia, and that he recognizes that the rebranding of assimilation with the euphemism special status won't fool anyone. ACT calls for humanitarian intervention and the deployment of United Nations peacekeepers to prevent genocide and uphold responsibility to protect and the Never Again pledge.
The war in Ambazonia is unwinnable by both sides. So far, it has killed over 10,000 civilians and 741 members of the security forces of La République du Cameroun, according to their own figures. It has injured and/or disappeared tens of thousands of Ambazonians. It has forced over 60,000 into refugee camps, resulted into looting and burning down of over 300 villages, leaving over 500,000 people internally displaced. Millions of Ambazonians are determined to vigorously resist and roundly defend any effort at colonial domination, whatever its origin, fighting to the last man or woman standing, if need be.
More people will die in the genocidal violence on both sides if Mr. Paul Biya insists on pursuing his self-confessed failed policies of assimilation, illegal occupation, recolonization, cultural and linguistic apartheid in Ambazonia. More people will die if delay tactics, if propaganda missions describing this as a settled domestic matter and the unilateralism of war over a negotiated settlement are allowed to prevail.
Last week, La République du Cameroun fielded missions to convince the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and America's top diplomat on Africa, Ambassador Tibor Nangi, that negotiations are not needed. Hosted by Yaoundé, the chairperson of the African Commission, Moussa Faki Mohamed, and the Secretary Generals of both the Francophonie, Louis Mishiki Wabu, and of the Commonwealth of Nations, Patricia Scotland, abdicated their roles by failing to support negotiations.
Even as ACT maintains an extended hand for negotiations, it congratulates and urges Ambazonians to continue to support, fund, and exercise the right to self-defense using all legal means. Your sacrifices are not in vain. The colonialists have lost all control of Ambazonia. Ambazonians are now better educated and more determined never to resubmit to what is already over 100 years of efforts by Nigeria, 1990 to 1953, and Cameroon, 1961 to 2019, to maintain them under colonial domination and force-feed them second-class citizenship of these giant neighbors. For every Ambazonian, it is independence restored or resistance forever.
The masses are crying. Oh, man, you say there is no problem. Molestation, repression, suppression, assimilation. You say there is no problem, brother.
And that was the statement from Ambazonia Coalition Team ACT on the occasion of the second anniversary of the war in Ambazonia.
We are now in one of our soldiers that have been killed by the military.
Some great pictures of camaraderie are coming out of Ground Zero, of restoration forces returning on the 30th of November, anniversary of the declaration of war, to the grave sites of their fallen compatriots and heroes to pay them their respects.
We came there to let him know that he is also in our mind. We have not forgotten him.
Returning to their families to honor them, to thank them for the sacrifice.
We came there to at least give some gift to his parents.
Even in the midst of death, even in the midst of grief, in the midst of mourning.
And to give some savon for his wife and his mother to wash the clothes of his children. Here is the carton of that savon, and this is the grave of that soldier.
To thank their families for their sacrifice and pray over their fallen comrades' graves and sing the beautiful Hail, Hail, Hail this land of glory.
The Most High God be the watchman of this nation.
Something is killing me slowly, and I'm feeling so lonely. But this thing I must to talk, oh. All my people, they for bush, oh. And our children are they go for school, oh. But nobody fit to talk, oh. We get to plenty, so many things where we really want to complain to you. See these people where they kill us, not the people where they get for protect me, yeah. Our children, they for prison. Our leaders, they for prison. Now they calling for dialogue. Now who and who go talk, oh. That's why we pray to God. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Console our people are dying, and our mothers are crying. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Console our children are dying, and our mothers are crying.
Bobe Innocentia is here with the first part of our news wrap-up for the week.
Two major international publications, The Economist and Washington Post, carried reports on the Cameroons. The Economist cries out in its title that English-speaking villages are burning in Cameroon and nails it even more in the subtitle, A Report from a Forgotten War, reminding the world that the genocide only seems to be getting started. In the meantime, Ambazonians have largely continued giving thumbs up to President Donald Trump following his termination of Cameroon from the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. But in a November 2019 letter to the editor of the Washington Post, the author submits that chopping off the supply of military weapons and assistance for police training would be more effective weapons against the regime that is subjugating and killing Ambazonians and denying them their human rights. Speculation fueled by deliberate misrepresentations a la Cameroonese is rife, and anxiety among Ambazonians at fever point over why the Swiss are postponing their visit to Cameroon. Other immediate and critical questions include finding out whether or not it is an indefinite postponement of the capacity-building trip to help La République du Cameroun prepare for international mediation between La République du Cameroun and Ambazonia. We will be revisiting this trip in depth in this edition. Another house slave of Ambazonian origin has gone down on his knees in a false supplication that Amba Volunteer Defense Forces from MANYU Southern Zone drop their weapons and return to Mamfe.
Make una take the message for all we children where they live for bush. Make them come back home. I beg them and go and kneel for down because cause it for MANYU plenty.
Chief Tabetando, the MANYU traditional ruler who doubles as CPDM senator, was joined in his pool of crocodile tears by two other sons of the soil who eventually pulled up to his feet. This member of the class of only me and I alone will serve in every capacity until death do us part.
I don't make them so say MANYU name don't bad. They talk now about MANYU, say a bad place. Make them come out at the bank. Not when people, when they raise us up, like by eat men of Elfium, they don't die. Then when I give you shit, it's not fine.
In his pretend plea for Amba boys to come back so that he can comfortably die in power and be granted a state burial, he revealed that he is working with the local churches and the local administration, clearly signaling to real Amba boys to beware of the clergy.
I've been telling those people to talk for me. As a when they come, when it's not here, when they come, when they go for bishop. They don't want to go for DSDO, they go for bishop. They say, Papa, send them money. I said, I go give money for bishop. The day when they come, bishop will receive them. I go send them money.
The pattern of going down on all knees was jump-started by the government delegate to the Bamenda City Council, Vincent Dumo, October 23rd, in a sign that observers interpret as the bludgeoning of the regime by the Ambazonian resistance and resilience. Eli Smith, the wolf in sheepskin that pretended he was a justice crusader until he got his 30 pieces of silver from the naked king whose kingdom is in a free fall. I was saying Eli Smith, the wolf in sheepskin, tweeted Saturday morning from the office of Ngute, the colonial slave number 1 and premier of Cameroon. His satanic tweet read, quote, "The creepy initiative thought by some as their route to political promised land is dead and buried. It died officially yesterday," end quote. The world recalls that leading up to the national monologue that every world organization has called to sham, Eli Smith was the errand boy who was robbing Peter to pay Paul. He was, together with other despicables from Europe, robbing bankrupt Cameroon to bribe and corrupt Amba fighters. His biggest trophy so far has been General Nambere, but the record shows that a large majority of Amba soldiers scorned their macabre efforts. Dr. Cyprian Awudumbaya, SDF Member of Parliament for DONGA-MANTUNG Center, has restored honorable title to his name following an early week declaration that he will no longer be seeking re-election in 2020. According to the 7th-term MP, the unresolved political crisis as well as insecurity in Ambazonia are grounds for his decision. Other officials of the party, especially at municipal level, have taken similar positions against the municipal and parliamentary elections bill for February 2020, a move that conforms with the initial position of the prostituted party when Colonial La République du Cameroun announced the holding of the elections. In an ironic twist, meantime, it is instead the Cameroon Renaissance movement of Maurice Kamto that has announced that he will not be taking part in the upcoming elections owing to the unresolved crisis in Ambazonia.
Total commotion took over the Vermoto Park in Kumbo.
The sight of an armored military convoy at Vermoto Park Market in Kumbo caused a total pandemonium as villagers took to their heels, running for dear life. The convoy, led by CPDM officials of the area, was reportedly hunting for a place of gathering to sell what they call important resolutions of the major national dialogue, as well as actions taken since its conclusion.
The peace caravan to the Bui division to explain the resolutions of the major national dialogue.
The convoy explained as much when they temporarily held hostage a local Baptist mission conference that was in session.
And lucky enough, met the Sofield conference.
There, the SDO, who is a son of the soil, pleaded for forgiveness of the sins of La République du Cameroon, without as much as stating what those sins are.
Government, you make mistake. Any man will make mistake. Even man when you take a collapse or in a hole go for farm, sometimes you make mistake, he cut your own body. I take God name beg una forgive government for a mistake we don't make.
The field marshal of the Red Dragons has reportedly come under a multi-pronged attack from forces of La République du Cameroon. In a short video shot from what looks like the thick of the forest, the field marshal says he is there to reassure Ambazonians that he is alive and fighting back. But the field marshal also passes on a talking point of warmongers eager to engage La République du Cameroon out of Ambazonia. In the video, he says La République du Cameroon should expect him to respond in kind in Chang and Bafoussam. You are listening to Ambazonia Calling, your space for educated news analysis, informed opinions and commentary towards the recognition of a free, independent Ambazonia. I am Innocent Chia. Stay with us.
Still ahead in this edition, we have The Devil Unmasked with Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta. We have a winner of the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until you have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling. The guest on The Devil Unmasked, by the way, is going to be Abdul Karim Ali. He's hosted by Chris Anu. We are bringing you excerpts from that great interview on ABC television. Some of you may not have seen it. Just part of the cross-fertilization between Ambazonian media outlets.
This basic, no? They didn't enter me for body. T-Marshal for Ambazonia. I don't come again.
Please don't go anywhere. We will be right back with Ambazonia Calling.
This is a lesson that every Ambazonian should know by heart from real politics. The world won't roll over just to please the heart to satisfy in the ranks of our people. Those who choose to be spoilers will be free to do as they please.
I recognize the fact that even those I consider to be egoistic or to be selfish, I recognize the fact that the intent is good. People simply think I have the best route to Boya, I have the shortest way, the easiest way. I recognize all that.
The search for a completely neutral country will never be successful because there is no such thing as a perfectly neutral country to serve as mediator.
We are going right back to Bobe Innocent Chair. He's got the second part of our news wrap-up for this week.
La République du Cameroon forces ramped up the visitation of genocidal violence on Ambazonia, deploying egregious acts including the dismemberment, beheading, and charring of Ambazonians. The horrors of Wainama, Jakiri, Mbui State, Northern Region, came on the heels of the mowing down Monday of more than 12 motorbike riders, a few feet from their motorcycles in Bot Village in DONGA-MANTUNG State in the Northern Region. In Muyuka, Bia, genocidal forces killed and burnt 7 unarmed citizens. Gruesome pictures of the torture of Ambazonians beaten to pulp, dragged in mud, and forced by La République du Cameroon genocidal forces to dig out the corpse of a colonial Cameroon military officer from a grave using their bare hands are making the rounds on Ambazonia's social media space. Sources allege that the exhumed corpse was that of a genocidal officer that had been acting as a spy in the Muyuka area. He was picked up by guys acting as amber boys, eventually leading to his death. It is not certain what happened to the unarmed citizens that La République du Cameroon terrorist forces rounded up and forced to dig up the grave with their bare hands or sticks, but it is impossible to think that they were not summarily executed. Another Reverend Father has been attacked and beaten to pulp by unidentified gunmen. Reverend Father Ntumfoyn of the Bamenda Archdiocese was picked up, his home searched, even as he surrendered whatever cash he had on him for his life to be spared. In a communication to his classmates, the man of God expressed gratitude for his life, even as he reassured that in the scheme of things he was doing well and recovering from the bruised skin, obviously taking a leaf from Apostle Paul, who endured beatings at the hands of the Roman authorities in his day. Some sources are intimating that the kidnapping and torture of the Reverend, like many men of God across denominations in Ambazonia, is not a random act but a bullying tactic using fake Atanganji boys who are disguised soldiers with assault weapons to create a rift between real Ambazonian fighters and the general population. Meantime, the Human Rights Watch senior researcher on Central Africa, Ilaria Alegrozi, continues to demonstrate pro-La République du Cameroon bias in her tweets. In her latest tweet, she tweets, quote, "As violence continues unabated, I keep hearing reports of kidnappings by armed separatists. Clergy, students, teachers among their main targets, and children still out of school 3 years on. Education is used as a weapon in this crisis. Shameful." End quote. It would be recalled that back in April 2019, the government of Cameroon allegedly denied Ms. Alegrozi entrance into the country. Many have since believed that it was a ploy to make believe that her reporting was critical. They could not have her see all the atrocities the government was committing. Ms. Alegrozi has gone out of her way to keep silent on genocidal acts perpetrated by the government. The Hague of Sea has been quick to distance itself from the self-proclaimed Ambazonian diplomat Eugene Ufoka, who has hitherto prided in a trip he undertook to Nigeria to visit with General Nambere, counting it as a larger-than-life achievement. Pro-IG attack dogs are recirculating the pictures of the visit online. In a public announcement shared with Ambazonia Calling, Hague of Sea's chief diplomat Dr. Larry Ayamba characterized any attempts at associating Eugene Ufoka, alias Tiko Pikin, with Hague of Sea's diplomatic team as tantamount to blackmailing. Reads the statement, quote, "Ufoka Eugene was excluded from the Ambazonian Governing Council more than a year ago. He therefore has nothing to do with diplomacy within Hague of Sea in any way, shape or form." End quote.
Judges at the International Criminal Court have sentenced a former Congolese rebel leader for war crimes and sexual slavery.
Finally, we close this section with a foreign news item that Ambazonians should pay close attention to. A former warlord in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Bosco Ntaganda, was found guilty of 18 counts of war crimes and sentenced to 30 years in prison.
He's Bosco Ntaganda. He was also known as the Terminator.
Many had accused him of genocide in acts his group committed in the Ituri region in the Democratic Republic of Congo in 2002-2003.
He was convicted of 18 war crimes and crimes against humanity for the killings of civilians in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It happened in the northeastern Ituri region between 2002 and 2003.
The sentencing of Tangana this week for crimes committed 16-17 years ago should serve notice to anyone in Ambazonia who may be tempted to think that warlordism and war crimes will go unpunished. Walking around free right now is not proof that crimes have not been committed. It is just proof that persecution for any crimes has not yet started. However long it takes, the long arm of the law will get the job done at some point.
He became the first person to be found guilty at The Hague of sexual slavery. He's facing now a 30-year prison term.
To avoid being dragged to the ICC, anyone involved with the war in Ambazonia must continue to abide by the laws of war and international humanitarian law. There are credible reports of a cholera outbreak in the Idabato community, Bakassi area in NDIAN state, in Ambazonia's southern zone. Attributing it to factors such as poor hygiene stemming from the absence of toilets and clean potable water, the medical community recommends boiling water before drinking it, as well as rushing anyone to a hospital or medical center who may show such symptoms as severe watery diarrhea, nausea and vomiting, dry mouth, excessive thirst, weakness, fatigue, or gets into a coma. Finally, in sports, the #1 Ambazonian flag-carrying athlete, Ntumfoyn, a pro-martial arts fighter out of Hyattsville, Maryland in the United States, who is also ranked the first pro-men's heavyweight in Virginia, scored a technical knockout against William Knight over the weekend. Knight had won 6 fights and lost 1 before suffering his loss to Ntumfoyn at 2 minutes 30 seconds mark of round 1. Innocentia for Ambazonia Calling.
Ambazonia Calling. You are in the heart of the news shrine. Call us the Kalakuta Republic of commentary, opinion, and editorials.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
A few cowards hiding around on the internet had the story cooked up and loaded up as a Reuters story, breaking story.
It is us they're trying to rub in the mud, and then they get their way to do it in the one do.
The story claims falsely that there has been a breakthrough in the Swiss-led process, one that leaves the place one and indivisible and being attributed to the Reuters news agency. This information is absolutely false. It is stupid. It is sinister. It is shameful. It is just the kind of thing that a desperate regime about to collapse would do. The only other people truly worse than Atanganji agents are those within Ambazonian ranks who, in an effort to crush the Swiss process, have to invent these stories and peddle them around. Shame on you.
Commentator Elvis just call me, commentator, they tell me how some woman they really believe the story, they attack it.
Oh nah, the cracks again. Oh nah, baby, my love for you now. Baby girl, I say with you, I'm just surprised. My love for you, girl, I know if it take you out of sight. Baby girl, I do anything for you, eh. I do anything. Baby girl, I do anything for you, eh. Baby girl, I do anything for you, eh. Baby girl, I do anything for you, eh. I do for you. I do anything for you, eh. Baby girl, I do anything for you, eh.
We will turn our attention shortly to the 3-part series on the Swiss-led mediation process. In the meantime, here's Tanyu Jude Agua Ozugen, who's got a baseball bat, and he's going after anyone and everyone who is doing the Amba on Amba war.
Silence is golden, they say, especially when speaking produces a perplexing hogwash. I'm referring to the convoluted, self-contradictory contraptions, to the questionable endorsement of the wayward, criminal and reprehensible speech by ADF spokesperson Tapang Ivo Tanku.
Ambazonians, I go tell one of the good, the bad and the ugly. So December don't start come. People they prepare for go Christmas. The one the way they prepare for go celebrate marriage for instance Ambazonia. The one way they want to marry traditionally. The one way they want to marry for court. When they go, I want to tell when I want to go on a backup plan. 2 million at least. Because when they hold you, na 2 million will move.
If you have forgotten what Tapang called for, let me remind you.
I will not care what boys there for ground zero. All defense forces, all whatever they call restoration forces. In fact, any person will eat there for ground zero where they defend women and children. We don't tell them. Same way they collect 2 million for any man come out diaspora. Any man will come out diaspora and collect 2 million for taxes.
Now, that is something no leader should evoke silence is golden about.
I have stated clearly in many occasions
AGOFC leader Cho Ayaba
that kidnapping for ransom, extortion is abhorrent, must be rejected.
But when you go back home, we will signal, let's say the man don't come, they catch him. May he pay bill. Once he pay bill, 2 million, 3 million, you will now understand the reason why we talk to people they talk.
All commanders under whose jurisdiction or command such activities occur bear primary responsibility.
AGOFC leader Cho Ayaba.
And they have a duty to protect our population and to arrest anyone engaging in acts of extortion or kidnapping.
So when they catch a person, they ask for only 3 million and they cry.
That is why it was perplexing for many to listen to Cho Ayaba.
The price of any treasonable offense is death.
He is, after all, Tapang's boss.
It is for the best interests of our war of independence for our forces to protect our population, protect our civilians, and to conduct themselves with utmost integrity.
He wrote out his audio days after Tapang had messed up the air with his repugnant calls.
We'll get the guns and the bullet on ground zero. Make their noise for inside Facebook and the rest social media. For ground zero, now we own them.
Something more was expected of Cho Ayaba.
This one at Tapang Ivo Tango. The message today be very clear. We'll go kill any internal threat. We'll go hunt down that particular General Chacha and all his so-called county by county SACO members, and we'll kill them. We'll kill them. I say we'll go kill. I never say even say we'll touch, we'll kill them.
Especially because his public rehearsal this time around was on the 4 Geneva Conventions on the Laws of War.
This code of conduct reflects the spirit of the 4 Geneva Conventions on the laws of war.
Why bother to lecture other Ambazonians on these laws, whereas the first ignoramus is really the ADF spokesperson?
We want to collect 2 million. If we have to double and that's fine, but the baseline is 2 million. We want to collect 2 million for anybody who no fear face. We want to catch them, we want to put them in prison, they give 2 million before you want to come out. So that made a learn lessons. Say this revolution for all man.
Our actions on the ground have been very loud and clear. We have released families, returned properties that were cattled in by kidnappers and extortionists.
If they catch a person for ground zero, may want to pay money first before the person come out. I don't always insist.
Hello, house na Commander Lion from sir. Da ADF people them, they don't come attack all my picking them. Attack me, they don't bomb, we houses them. We leader them, they don't bomb. All we houses them for a. They be one Kiwi. So now that ADF people them, now Ibube. Don't lead the gang. Bring them for a Ibube.
It is from the height of such illuminating darkness that the AGOFC leader spoke. Predictably, he went after other leaders of the revolution, calling them enablers, a term he favors, but also calling them implants, a new dehumanization term, coming to Ambazonia courtesy of AGOFC.
Don't allow external enablers and implants within our revolution to rewrite the story of your enduring sacrifices. Everywhere these implants sitting here in the diaspora have been, they've attacked camps, they've attacked commanders.
Everyone else is groping in the dark, according to Cho Ayaba.
Their amateurism, lack of foresight, lack of preparedness.
They are lost in the dark on diplomacy, on self-defense, on the Swiss-led process, and more.
They failed in targeted diplomacy. They took the Swiss initiative as their last hope. They've messed it up. They've allowed certain groups within Switzerland to undermine the integrity of our struggle, make us a laughingstock at the level of the international system.
The million amber question is, why is Cho Ayaba standing by while those he considers morons seated at the table?
They undermine the leadership of this war of independence.
We'll get the largest force for ground zero. If one impose and one push forth the rule of law on ground zero has to be governable by our people and made ungovernable towards La République du Cameroon terrorists.
Because their main target is to discredit, undermine my personality.
Is it the case that he wants the Ambazonian revolution to fail first before he rescues it? Or is it the case that he knows it is not failing?
These implants within our war of independence, who thought they could hijack our war of independence to project themselves even when they had virtually no plan or any idea how we were going to defeat Cameroon. They have one last opportunity, and that is blackmail, sabotage.
Why would anyone who cares as much as he claims he does not intervene, take over, and run the Swiss-led process to the satisfaction of all, since he claims to master his stuff? Might it just be another lecture, like the one he gave on the 4 Geneva Conventions on the Laws of War, while his own spokesperson is a glorious ignoramus on the subject?
Make una come out and go ground zero. When I get money, they go take 2 million at least. We'll start put list. If you've been an engineer, you pay a 5. If you've been a nurse, you pay a 2. If you've been a doctor, you pay a 7. We'll start put lists so that make una increase the money. That money, this will get to help Amba boys to buy guns.
Instead of indicting Tapang Ivo Tanku, the egg of sea leader managed to drag the late General Ivo Mba out of his grave.
It's exactly what General Ivo did in the state of Meme and in NDIAN.
Might Ivo be taking this beating in death because he cannot speak for himself? Is Tapang being spared the same way Chris Ano can run amok on ABC while their respective bosses wash on? It is easy to speak in conspiracy babble.
It's not a story being told by these internal enablers who think they can propagate cynicism, they can propagate blackmail, they can undermine the beauty and hope of this revolution and instill fear and uncertainty, undermine the credibility of our fighting men and women. This is not our story.
The stuff comes across so off-key as to sound like comical gibberish. It may gratify Cho Ayaba to let off in such scattershot that it is impossible to keep track of all the spent fragments of enablers and implants. If Cho Ayaba is speaking, leaders who disagree with him can prepare to lick their political wounds.
Reject their chaos, reject their cynicism, reject their desire to undermine those who stand for you, bat for you on a daily basis.
He's a master at unleashing friendly fire.
Like families, we make mistakes.
Passing on yet another chance to reprimand Tapang.
That's boy the way they do on ground zero, they chop na stone. They want a war, they beg any sympathy.
After nothing sensible or reasonable was said about the Guzang massacre, leaving thoughtless flunkies to offer an incompetent defense of the ADF.
If it behaves like a terrorist, it speaks like a terrorist, it walks like a terrorist, it acts like a terrorist, it is a terrorist.
Maybe there is no defense.
If you look at other wars and compare those wars with ours, we have conducted ourselves with utmost integrity.
Is it really too much to expect that egg of sea will one day call out war criminals? It seems that the supercilious Ayaba is part of the problem he is criticizing. The pot calling the kettle black. Cho Ayaba looked himself in the mirror and saw enablers and implants. How does one manage to be blind to Tapang's criminal rhetorics?
Anything county by county will be destroyed, will be killed.
And blame Issa Chiroma for playing in the same league.
Anything that threatens the ADF on ground zero will be killed. Make it be very clear, my name is Tapang Ivo Tanku.
How do you forget to explain the linkages between Amber Coin, the AK-47 project, the Sniper project, and the PIN project?
For them, everything was about propaganda to amass money. They mobilized enough resources to arm our men on the ground.
Ambazonians are now invited to await the military defeat of La République by the end of January 2020.
We will fix this revolution. We will take over Ambazonia. I want you to be focused on the strategy of takeover. That is your last hope.
Hopefully, that too is not one of those grandiloquent promises and threats. Did I remember to state that all this saber rattling is unnecessary? This is Tani Jude Agua Ozugen for Ambazonia Calling.
Amango today inside pay, you know the free. We president on the side say all man of yay. Grand ambition, fuck that slogan, no yay. Presido, the pay jaga jaga. Una take all till the we for scatter. They need 102 students for send address. Una select 2 Anglophones, escape address. Bia, young, region, prison. Escape who know why man show BBC they for prison. They don't tell all we then start for colors Anglophones. Fuck up the government. Minister for Communication, no fit talk good English. Southern Cameroon independence, that's my wish. No good third roads, no seaports, no light, no attack, no airports. President, you overget fake promises. Wait to happen, failing us, you bring us diseases. But men are the cry, we are the ask why. You don't come for that chair, you don't go shake, you go die. Men are the crying, we are the crying, about what they crying.
And now to our series on the Swiss-led mediation process. We begin with Barrister Manjong Jutambe, who reminds Ambazonians that it is not only among Ambazonians that there are spoilers, there are also spoilers on the La République camp. There are at least 2 camps working against each other at the level of La République du Cameroun. Here's Barrister Manjong Jutambe.
2 camps within the Biya regime are fighting each other over what solution Mr. Biya should entertain in addressing the genocidal violence in the southern Cameroons. The first is that of the warmongers, its members, represented at the level of the presidency by Mr. Ayola, the Director of Civil Cabinet, and supported by the Ministers of Defense, the delegates of National Security and the Gendarmerie. Other disciples of this camp include the likes of Fam Ndongo, Ignoramus Paul Atanganji, and lead slave Chief John Gute. These bloodthirsty and war drum-beating vampires are violently opposed to any negotiations, including the internationally mediated negotiations under the auspices of Switzerland. The Biya regime has not spared money, military hardware, undercover resources, the formation of militias in order to hasten military victory for this camp. So far, it has not worked. Although the next 2 weeks are critical, as this camp doubles up efforts supported by a growing number of forcefully recruited traditional rulers who are asking Amber boys to lay down their weapons, vacate their chiefdoms, or watch as these sellout traditional authorities up the ante by turning on them and delivering them to Emperor Biya's genocidal terrorist forces. However, Mr. Biya believes he will succeed in deceiving the world to see him as not belonging in that camp, although he hopes and banks on these barbarians succeeding so as to help him avoid the much-awaited negotiations recommended by the international community. The second camp is godfathered at the level of the presidency by Mr. Biya's Secretary General, Ferdinand Ngongo. Because of his support for an alternative solution to the war and blood path that is a preference by the war hawks, he is being isolated and subjected to sabotage, as he is increasingly seen as the heir apparent. It is this camp that has engaged with the Swiss government. The one thing common to both camps is that none wants to listen to, talk less of entertain any idea of an independent southern Cameroons. They would have preferred for this issue to be handled as an internal matter, but find themselves cornered now that the international community is united in its support for the Swiss-led process. This is Manjong Jurambe for Ambazonia Calling.
And we now have information to share, not so Manjong, with our listeners with respect to what exactly happened in the lead up to and all the scheming that was happening around how to deny visas, but also exactly what happened as soon as those who are pro-war believed that they had won.
Ahead of this weekend, this camp in favor of achieving a military solution, no matter how many tens, if not thousands of lives are lost in the process, staged a coup to render the negotiations a stillbirth. At the center of the coup was first slave Chief John Gute. The plan was for Cameroon's embassy in Geneva to deny visas to staff of the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, who were due to accompany officials of the Swiss federal government to Cameroon this week. Ambazonia Calling has confirmed that the Cameroon embassy in Geneva did not go along with the visa denial plan. However, First Slave John Gute and the man who has to go down in history as the enabler-in-chief, Ellis Smith, met to discuss how best to frustrate Ambazonia's restoration quest. Chief John Gute and Ellis Smith, according to our sources, placed phone calls to the international media, selling the negotiations as dead. we are reliably informed that one of the calls was placed to the United States Department of State, misleading at least one State Department staff into sending out a tweet relying the allegations of visas having been denied. As expected, Ellis Smith ran with the intoxication and manipulation on his Twitter handle. The false information about the denial of visas was relayed by other tweets until they were debunked by Ambazonian liberation movements that are party to the negotiations. Much to the chagrin, First Slave John Gute and Enabler-in-Chief Ellis Smith later found out in the course of Saturday and Sunday that the Swiss had to reschedule with La République, claiming they need time in order to put together their team. The team that would have met with the Swiss but for the rescheduling to start serious preparations for the negotiations. Ambazonian liberation movements that signed on to the Swiss-led process continue to emphasize that Cameroon is not going to negotiate in good faith. If they do not come to the negotiating table, their bad faith and evil intentions notwithstanding, the sovereign people of Ambazonia will not be blamed by the international community for rejecting a negotiated settlement. First Slave Chief John Gute and Enabler-in-Chief Ellis Smith can celebrate a cancellation and or postponement of the first round of preparations the regime needs in order to be set for the face-to-face negotiations. Yaoundé will, however, be unable to run away from negotiations altogether. It is only a matter of time before the colonial regime in Yaoundé finds out that it can run, but it certainly cannot hide from the negotiations. This is Manjong Jurambe for Ambazonia Calling.
What Cameroon has done to us, I want you never to forget. The pain they have brought to bear on this generation, I want you never to forget. Not out of hate, but so that the next generation will remember and make sure they do the things they are supposed to do, never to go through this again.
I will continue to play my part to ask the people of Southern Cameroon to take their revolution into their hands and continue the fight to liberate themselves.
I'm sorry to say, because of France's policies in Africa, in French Africa, the state of La République du Cameroon do not have any pressure on them to find a way to resolve this issue, because they are always thinking that no matter what happens, France will always be there to give them coverage.
Divine J is here with the second part of our three-part series on the Swiss-led mediation process, and he looks at why certain Ambazonians suddenly believe newspapers like Jeune Afrique and believe enablers like Ellis Smith over and above international organizations, Western democracies, and their fellow Ambazonian comrades.
Those who argue that La République has not given a mandate to the Swiss government to act as mediator with Ambazonia are setting themselves on fire this weekend, eating and swearing by every word that has come out of the mouth of a certain Ellis Smith. They won't believe the Swiss government and the international community, but they are quick to believe the words spoken by the worst enabler Ambazonia has known to this stage of its restoration quest. Before Ellis Smith, the naysayers sang a creed to the journalistic qualities of Jeune Afrique news magazine. They referred to a citation attributed to the first slave, John Gute, in Jeune Afrique, stating that the regime did not have a mediator in the conflict and treated the citation as gospel. If it is published by Jeune Afrique, it must be true, they argued, conveniently refusing to acknowledge that Jeune Afrique is an image laundering operation for corrupt Francophone tyrants all across Africa. They refused to consider what it means for the credibility of the paper and the veracity of the information published therein, to see that an article published in the same edition claiming that Eric Chinje was appointed negotiator with the diaspora was entirely false. Those who want Ambazonians to believe every word that comes from the mouth of Ellis Smith and every letter printed by Jeune Afrique pretend to have forgotten that even spokespersons for the Biya regime, the likes of Konchu Komeni and Issa Chiruma, have been liars worthy of entry into the Guinness Book of Lies. It is one thing to hate the Swiss-led process and to pledge to crash it, and quite another to invite Ambazonians to believe their colonizer and those enablers working for the Biya regime to the point of working against having their own interests represented and properly articulated at the table of negotiations. This is Divine Angie for Ambazonia Calling.
Ana figu mama pina kapi stop jam chimala amaya ma bonta ibusula lilina fata su bonta. That's what the king said. That's what the king said to the messenger. Tum tuma bene bebo ala anya ma bozu zento. This lion down the valley. I know the shepherd them divani. Hey. Leaving the lion and a lamb with a broken leg. Left at the mercy for the lion just to chop it up. She got her back against the wall. She had to fight for her life. She had to stand, she couldn't die without the fight. Whoa, 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 yeah.
The Swiss process naysayers, or the doubting Thomases, have one big thing they want you to believe. There was never a mandate provided by the Biya regime, never at all. Notwithstanding the fact that the Biya government has never said, we did not give one. Somehow these naysayers are playing public relations officers for the Biya regime. And here now with the third and final part of our series is the monk from Ibali Kumato, Vetzekov himself.
Those who say Ambazonians should never have given a mandate to the Swiss government want you to believe that the Biya regime has not given the Swiss a mandate. That is, however, not what the Swiss government says. In announcing the process back in July, the Swiss government was clear that it had received a mandate from both parties, from Ambazonia and from the government of Franco-Cameroon. International organizations and Western democracies which endorsed the process did so with the understanding that both parties had given their mandate. The Franco-Cameroon Republic saw and read all statements issued by the Swiss, the Ambazonian liberation movements, by international organizations and by Western democracies, and never once came out to say that Yaoundé did not give the Swiss their mandate, not once. Instead, Franco-Cameroon received and discussed and photographed themselves discussing the process in Yaoundé. The Swiss ambassador to Cameroon visited with Paul Biya several times, granting interviews at the end of the audiences on the state-owned CRTV about the regime's involvement in the process. Notwithstanding what should have been obvious, naysayers within the ranks of Ambazonia have volunteered to serve as spokespersons for the regime, standing up in defense of Yaoundé by claiming that Cameroon has not given the Swiss a mandate. A number of questions are begging for answers here. Why are Ambazonians defending the Franco-Cameroon Republic when it comes to this matter? Is it reasonable to argue that Ambazonian liberation movements would hold a moral high ground from which to even demand that the Franco-Cameroon Republic should give a mandate if they had not given their own mandate? What obligation does the Franco-Cameroon Republic have to communicate to Ambazonian movements that they have had that exchange with the Swiss government? Is it fathomable that it could be done under the wrap of confidentiality? Is it impossible to give a verbal mandate? Who set the rule under which a mandate must be written and or must be shared? Those demanding that the Biya regime should prove that they have given a mandate must be under the impression that the Biya regime is coming to the table in good faith. That is not true. It can only work to the advantage of the Franco-Cameroon Republic if Ambazonian liberation movements reject coming to the table of negotiations. So, it is easy to see why even if the Franco-Cameroon Republic gave a mandate, they could encourage Ambazonians to think that they have not done so. If Ambazonian liberation movements give their mandate with the understanding that the Franco-Cameroon Republic has done the same, but it turns out Yaoundé did not, At this stage, Ambazonia will not be alone in being tricked into believing that Yaoundé gave a mandate. The Western democracies supporting the process and the international organizations which have pledged support would have been led by the nose as well. Is it not much better to be in the company of the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, along with the United Nations, the European Union and the African Union in being misled into believing Yaoundé gave a mandate? We can, together with these countries and organizations, figure out how we got it wrong when the moment comes. So, if Yaoundé never gave its mandate, why would the Biya regime just sit and allow the Swiss government to hatch and tell all these lies about the regime being on board and having given Switzerland a mandate? Isn't this a case in which, as our people would say, some in the Ambazonian liberation movements have overplayed their hand at sense king? This is the monk from Ibadikumato for Ambazonia Calling.
We are not done until you have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling. If Ambazonians can count on just one person to be a vexation to the spirit, it's Ambassador Herman Cohen. Call it putting his foot in his mouth. But he knows how to just get on our nerves. And as irritating as it may be sometimes, every Ambazonian wants to hear what Ambassador Herman Cohen has to say next. That's exactly what Bobby Lambert Bomb was listening out to.
A former American diplomat who was apparently retired from everything else except remain like hair in the Ambazonian soup, had a few more words of discouragement for Ambazonians. It is not clear how he has measured it, but Ambassador Herman Cohen claims Ambazonians are not bitter, at least not as bitter as Eritreans or South Sudanese to obtain independence. Add this last asinine claim to previous ones like getting the oil is an illusion, and you may begin to understand the straitjacket mentality. Westerners have a way of not seeing enough grievances to justify anything by Africans. Slavery did not stop because Africans were bitter enough. Neither did colonialism. Neither did segregation in the United States or apartheid in South Africa. Not bitter enough could be code for Ambazonians have not been slaughtered in numbers high enough to make independence the only option left. Why do I think Cohen sounds like a warlord? Does he not know that the Rubicon was crossed in October 2017 and that Ambazonians have, like the slaves of old, gone past the door of no return? We have closed every slave plantation in Ambazonia, including the oil fields La République used to milk and bilk with reckless abandon. Yet, we are not bitter enough. Millions of our people live in bushes, forests, and refugee camps. Yet, that is not bitter enough. I was forgetting that Cohen is referring to more than 2 decades of war and millions of people killed. If that is where he thinks we must get in order to obtain independence, why is he not just spitting that truth out? Might it be that it is Cohen who is showing he is bitter that Ambazonians auditioned him for the job of lobbyist but did not sign the $30,000 per month paycheck? Might this bitterness be coming from his botched appointment as the voice of Ambazonia and as lead mediator by a certain David Makongo, Yerima Dabney and co? Ambazonians have picked to resist the colonizers, persist in demanding restoration of their independence, and insist on not settling for the federalism within a so-called more democratic Cameroon per Cohen's recommendation. The last sport we want to enroll for is the bitterness championship. Mahatma Gandhi defeated the Brits for the independence of India by mastering his bitterness in a non-violent campaign, not by putting it on a shop window. American civil rights icon Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and former President Barack Obama have known what it means to go high when they go low. Ambazonia is being set up as the happiest place in the world, not as a land where inhabitants ought to be more bitter than those who have endured a generation of war in South Sudan and Eritrea. It is unfortunate that another day, another opportunity, and another chance when Cohen could have made the case for Ambazonia's independence and right to self-determination, and the only case he found time to make was one that very directly, as all others before now, benefit the colonizers who hold Ambazonia in bondage. You may know where I'm coming from when I say it is time for all Ambazonians to ignore Cohen and his ilk. This is Lambert Mbom for Ambazonia Calling.
Because all our children are dying, and our mothers are crying. Okay, let's take a minute of silence for our brothers and sisters who have lost their life in the struggle, and our mothers who are living in the bushes, our children suffering in the bushes with no food and no shelter. We pray that the peace return in our land so that we can live in peace forever. That's what we cry for. We get to plenty so many things where we really want to complain to you. See these people where they kill us, not the people where they get for protect we. Yeah. Our children there for prison, our leaders there for prison, but they've been calling for dialogue. Now who and who got talk? Oh. That's why we pray to God. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Cause all our people are dying, and our mothers are crying. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Cause all our children are dying, and our mothers are crying. Say we get to plenty so many things that we really won't complain to you, Daddy.
We will have 2 more stories here from BOYO Innocent Chair before we turn to the Devil on Mask. One, a tribute to John Chichester, who is known very well to Ambazonians in the New York and Washington, D.C. metro area.
Ambazonia has lost a dear friend, a true friend who had become an Amber son.
A true hero of Amberland, a guy who wanted to see Ambazonia free, who was hoping to return with all of us to BOYO but did not make it.
Paying tribute to John Chichester, Barrister C. Ajunvambe wrote, he was a real Amber enthusiast, a true friend of the people of Ambazonia who did more for the cause than a lot of us will ever do. He was committed, selfless, and cheerful even when attacked by some sharp-tongued, ill-mannered, ignorant Ambazonians. End quote. Either at the UN or other avenues, John Chichester stood with Ambazonians and for Ambazonia for the liberation of homeland. May his cheerful soul rest in perfect peace.
And a final story, a big warning again from Innocent Chair about the dangers that our people continue to face as they live in Nigeria, the dangers of abduction and rendition to La République du Cameroun.
Ambazonia Calling has been reliably informed that the Cameroon Gendarmerie and undercover officers marauding in Nigeria are kidnapping Ambazonians and smuggling them back to Cameroon with the complicity of border officials and the Cameroon embassy in Nigeria. According to our sources who corroborated audio evidence that we received from a victim that was tear-gassed and stabbed severally in a kidnapping attempt that aborted, Nigerian security forces may have arrested and have detained at least 3 undercover officers from Cameroon, including a female officer for international criminal activity, including abduction of refugees in Nigeria. At Ambazonia Calling, our plea to Ambazonians on Ground 1 in Nigeria is to make sure you go out in groups of at least 2. Make sure you can see your friend at all times. Carry whistles if you must. Another source informed that Nigerian security forces have mapped a pattern, and many of the kidnappings are taking place after Ambazonians leave UN refugee offices for registration or renewal of status.
We should trust in our cause that is embedded in truth and it's God ordained, and we should hope for the best while expecting challenges.
Our job is to ensure that the negotiations work for what we seek, and that our leaders and negotiating team do not sign onto any deal that falls short of outright independence for our homeland. In other words, our destiny is in our hands, not in the hands of the mediator.
Where is the war in southern Cameroon? Is the war at La République? No. So who has crossed borders? La République du Cameroon. They need to ask La République du Cameroon to cease fire, because who also drew first blood? La République du Cameroon. So you can ask someone defending to stop violence.
The job of Ambazonians today is to make the Swiss-led process be the equivalent of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, whose implementation by the United Nations culminated in the independence of South Sudan in July 2011.
Welcome to our special interview segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out. As announced earlier, The Devil Unmasked today will be hosted by Chris Anu. This is Ambazonia Calling, cross-fertilizing with ABC Television. When Comrade Chris Anu opens this interview with Comrade Abdul Karim Ali, the question he's just asked him is, when did they take you in? How did they deal with you? When did you end up in your cell? And where was that?
They took me opposite set first, and a high-ranking officer came and asked me, who am I, just to confirm if I were Abdul Karim. And then, of course, asked for my phones and laptop. And then they took me now to set, not where people are being kept in detention, but somewhere that could be one of their interrogation centers. Or that is where, they asked for my passwords for phones and laptop. I didn't hesitate. I gave them because, as you all know, I have nothing to hide, really. I'm vocal. If I had anything to hide, I wouldn't attend invitations from televisions all over La République du Cameroon and other platforms. So I'm not involved in violence or any barbarism, so nothing to hide per se. So I gave them no question really that night, except what was I doing in Yaoundé. There was this being delayed till 9 p.m. I was now taken to a place almost 200 meters away from where I was kept. That's where they have cells, part of the cells. The room they put me in it had at least 90,000 mosquitoes. You enter the room and you're fighting with mosquitoes to have space to breathe.
How many of you were in that room, or just you by yourself?
Oh yeah, that night I was alone, but 2 days later they brought in a thief, a guy who had stolen. He admitted that to me.
Yeah.
To stay with me, who was released 4 days later.
all the days you spent in that facility, you were left in that mosquito room?
No, not when you guys prayed and worked hard, and the United Nations embassies, which I may reserve to call specific countries' names, and as well as the Red Cross, not soon as they intervened. You know, my wife worked so hard with barristers, specifically one, Barrister Ayuko Tang, you know, to get Red Cross come and so on. So that was changed. The mattress was changed, and I was given mosquito net. However, it should be noted that I refused everything from my abductors. I refused not their water, not their sleepers, not whatever they could offer. Because by the way, I was so shocked that they charged me with terrorism and they are ready to treat me well. So it was that was double standard.
You were actually charged within those few days you were there?
Yes, I was taken on a Wednesday. Yeah, so Monday, yes, I was charged. I was charged with terrorism, secession, sponsor of terrorism, sponsor of secession, apologies of terrorists, and sponsor of terrorism. So all of those things, and those were very confusing accusations levied on one person.
Were you tortured?
No, I wasn't tortured. Psychologically, yes. Physically, no.
People who saw you in there, they said you were very defiant, very, very defiant. You refused to eat, you refused to drink their water, you refused to take anything they brought to you. What were you eating? And by the way, how long did it take you for you to get contact with the outside world while in that place?
Well, I think God has blessed me with the wealth most people die without getting, which is few people, the people of Southern Cameroon who have friends, who have friends, who have friends, who know someone, who knows someone, who knows someone. So these people, which is to me the most important wealth in the world, the kind of pressure you gave changed things for me than it would have occurred to anyone. I think on Monday, because on Friday already, by their own admission, lawyers had showed up, but they refused. They denied that I wasn't there. But the pressure was so much, and on Monday...
Hold on there. The following days, lawyers showed up at the facility and they denied that you were not in there.
Yeah, sure. This is what the lawyers said to the investigator in my presence, and that was admitted, yes. So, but on Monday, that's Thursday, they took me on Monday, I was able to see lawyers. But on Tuesday, because on Monday I was taken to the magistrate, who simply asked me why I was caught. No, where I was caught. I told him nobody caught me because I was not running. You catch someone that is running. He said, okay, arrest. I said, no. I was not arrested because nobody explained to me why I was taken and even read my rights. So in English, that would be proper for abduction. So I was abducted.
Right.
So he said, all right, you go back to the gendarmerie because your case is being investigated some more. I thought, okay, that's fine. I went back. So the next day, and don't forget, I had this abscess. This abscess was killing me. So Barrister Ayuko Tang brought me water and also brought me some apples. They refused it. They refused all of these things and had not eaten. So I asked myself...
We will be right back with The Devil Unmasked.
A bullet kills a human being, but can never kill justice from generation to generation. Some people should not be treated as if they were a conquered race. Our children need a future. We need negotiations and not manipulations.
Your own lawyer brought you drinks and fruit, and they refused him handing them to you.
Yes, a very polite lawyer, by the way. He did it in the best polite manner twice, and they refused twice. So they had been serving some dirty food under the door. I really and truly, I will not take this from anyone, especially an oppressor, feeding me under the door. I'd refuse, but I could eat maybe. But once I could have eaten maybe. But once they refused water, I asked myself, do you want me to die? You want me to eat food without water? So that is when I took the decision, and then it clocked 15 days, no food, no water, until the pressure had mounted and they allowed for the first family visit that had to bring my wife, and that is the day I had a change of clothes, and of course I ate. Luckily, I'm a Muslim, we do fast, so it wasn't a big deal, but I guess I was dying.
And for those 15 days, you had no food within the facility.
Yeah, and I'm happy you guys didn't see me then. Especially for those who come out with insults now. I'm happy they didn't see me then. They would have cried.
Now, I was told that you were specifically asked whether you know me. You know me, Chris Ano.
Yeah, among many others, and it was crazy. I said, you guys have my phone, and you saw Chris Ano's number inside. You saw a conversation between me and him, and you're asking if I know him. Is crazy. So, but I told him that I know what you want to ask. I know you want to ask what is my relationship with him. I said that is my brother. We all come from the same mother. We all are Southern Cameroonians, if that's what you seek to know. And if you want to be asking me what relations I have with my own family, then be my guest, but I have no answers for that. Yeah, so they asked a couple of questions like that, and I found them very, very callous questions. But if it may interest you, one of the questions they asked, which may want to enlighten our people,
okay.
That was why do I have content of Southern Cameroons in my phone? Not violent content, but content. So right. The question was, I asked them, what else would you want me to have? If it were you who willingly joined Southern Cameroons, and then we did all what we've been doing to you, including killing parents, maiming, and all these things now, what the hell would you be talking about in your life if not this matter? So the guy he said he was the investigator, and he was looking at me. I said, write it down. That is my answer. The point is what is important for us to all note. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you 515.
Yeah, so these guys, we must understand terrorism is today being cloned as the violence of the weak. When a weak man responds or refuses to be a victim, he's being called a terrorist. But when the strong do violence, it is being called war. Sometimes they coin it in a better way, war on terrorism. Just like freedom of speech, which is something enshrined in the Constitution of La République du Cameroun, freedom of speech and freedom of expression, it is actually a hate speech for the weak, and then it is freedom of speech for the strong. So these are terrible things, and those are what I gave as answers. And I told them, look, it seems we Southern Cameroonians and Francophones would definitely have different philosophical and dictionary definitions to terrorism, to secession, and all those things that they levy on me. So we are going to define it in an Anglo-Saxon fashion in court, and I explain it in the context of Southern Cameroon, La République du Cameroun, and then we see who the terrorist is. Who the secessionist is. I said that's not a word we've used on ourselves. That is a word you've imposed on us. But I'm going to say it in court. Let's see if your court has that sanity to look at me in the face and call me a terrorist, because I'm not. But we're going to define what terrorism is, and we shall know who the terrorist is. So what is important here on the pinning point is that we must know our history. A people who don't know their history is pretty much like a tree without roots. When you know your history, we must get into this stuff so that we can represent ourselves in the best manner possible, irrespective of the circumstances.
Right.
Ambazonia Calling. You are in the heart of the news shrine. Call us the Kalakuta Republic of Commentary, Opinion, and Editorials.
While you were in there, quite a number of conspirators out here, especially in the diaspora, said the Swiss conspired for you to be arrested returning from Switzerland. I mean, this was coming from some of the most popular people, frontline leaders that you would imagine in this struggle. They said that the Swiss had a hand in your abduction by the French Cameroon security. What do you say to people like that?
Well, I think that's a very great concern, which I will not blame these people. I think people are trapped in their history, and history traps their people. Myself and my people, we've been through a lot for 58 years, and for the past 3 years, we've been through thunder and fire. I will not blame any of my compatriots who make certain statements, but I would just say we have to be careful. We are dealing with an international case here. We are dealing with diplomacy, which is not our thing, is the thing of the West. So we must learn this diplomacy, the language and the charisma to succeed. So when we get angry, we should not remove our gloves. In Hausa, they said clearly that when you lose your mind, when you get angry and lose your mind, don't go further to lose your heart. So I would say that I wouldn't blame these comrades who would have gone an extra mile to blame, because logic might have pointed in those directions, but I'm here to say that please, we need to thank the Swiss government. I personally am here thanking the Swiss ambassador, and not before I continue, let me come out clearly and thank all the international community actors and players, all Southern Cameroonians, all the churches, the pastors, the imams, the Muslims, friends, and even enemies who prayed and worked that I got released. But we should not point fingers when we don't have true cases. Look, Southern Cameroonians must understand that we are dealing with a very delicate case here. Diplomats really don't deal with people who cannot control their information. Information management is at the heart of every diplomatic moves, and it's at the heart of every confidentiality. So we have to be careful what we say and what we do, who we tell, and where we are saying it. We have to be careful, really. So we should be thanking the Swiss, not blaming them regarding my case. Thank you.
What do you say to the diplomatic community in Yaoundé who did everything to get you out? I had a discussion with you, and I said, hey, if you were not coming from Swiss, maybe they would have forgotten of you as they did with Sissoko and Tassan, Wilfred and the rest. What would you say to them?
I would just remind the international community that liberty, or the tree of liberty, is being refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and of tyrants. This is actually, I'm quoting from Thomas Jefferson. They should know this. I thank them so much, because without them, I know the pressure. Without them, it would have been very difficult on my comrades. I wouldn't say my comrades wouldn't have gotten it. Almighty God is the controller of all these things. But we really do recognize the role they're playing. I even want to take this opportunity to thank Switzerland, to thank even the lady you interviewed the other day, Chris. What's her name?
Rebecca Tinsley, yes.
I want to thank any individual, groups, or many people who pay attention to our case. I'm saying that if I'm fighting with you, Secretary Chris, and anybody who notices it and say, look, stop fighting, let's talk, that is a friend.
We will be right back with The Devil Unmasked.
We need friends than enemies. Southern Cameroonians must grow above their levels of thinking right now. I want to thank all of them, not only for my release, and further for the release of other people that might be coming after. We don't need to mention all these things here. Look, the international community will never come to tell you we are giving you what you want. But the mere fact that they have entered our case, we should thank God and thank them. Thanking God and thanking them doesn't mean accepting every and anything that they give, but it is our responsibility, civic responsibility, moral duty, a logical stand to thank anyone who even chooses to speak about us. By speaking about us, they are teaching us and they are announcing us. So I thank them very much, and words cannot describe how I feel positively about them.
My mother, Adu, told me she was very, very, very excited seeing you in there, the interest you paid on them, coming to sit down, talking to her, talking to them. You were just like a son, she said, a son, her son.
Yes, Secretary Chris, as a Muslim and as a person of my age, I really rely on God for my reward and stuff like that. But just for the purpose of learning, we can always share these experiences. When people pointed out some things, which they have the right to do that, or maybe, oh, look, this guy, he went out and came out, how could he? I just said to myself, I wasn't in that cell alone. I was with people, and one day, these people will bear witness for me, and that's the best testimony I'll like. the changes that came for me through Red Cross, United Nations, and so on, I did not take them alone. Today, Mama is out. Mama will tell you that the day changes started for me, it changed for everyone. Because I told them that I will not accept anything if it's not going for anyone. I want it for everyone. And I told them that I want to speak with my people. I saw many innocent guys, women. The first day, Mama Grace cried. And I just asked, is that Mama Grace? No one answered. She's the one who shouted, like 30 meters away from me, that yes, na me, na who di talk. This is a woman for 38 days unable to call my name. Today she calls me Peter. Tomorrow she calls me Gibet. The closest she got to my name was Abubakar. And these people locked up such a woman. You know, so yes, indeed, comrades are there and they will leave. They will not, all of them will not die there. We are struggling hard, and they will testify whatever happened there. I chose not to speak of it. I did it not for any show. I did it for myself to begin with and for God. And I thank God that there were responses. Yes, so I felt comfortable talking with my people than I would talk with anyone. And by the way, not a word in French came out from my mouth.
Oh, yes, I was told that in there you totally refused to answer a question in French, and you told them you did not understand what they were saying.
That's true.
We will be right back with The Devil on Mask.
Ambazonia's freedom, Africa's liberation. Our theme is coined from the very teachings of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Independence of Ghana is not complete until Africa is totally liberated. If Ambazonia's freedom is not achieved, then Africa cannot talk of its liberation. So we have come to Ghana to start a new dynamism in the continent of Africa.
Let's get back to the Swiss initiative. You have heard, ever before you were arrested, the vilification of that initiative. People say, oh no, they are not serious. Oh no, the Swiss are in the pocket of French Cameroon. Oh no, French Cameroon is not committing to the Swiss initiative. Oh no, the Swiss are bribing people on ground zero to get involved or to go to Swiss for the talks. Is this all what you saw attending that meeting in Switzerland?
I think this is a very important question. And by the way, I am not disappointed in the negative comments that come from other comrades and folks. But I'm disappointed in the processes of statements or the processes in which they use to deliver whatever they're using. And Secretary Chris, permit me take a little bit of time. Okay. It's important to define our terms. Sometimes as a debater, I've debated for 12 years at very high levels. Sometimes as a debater, one of the things that is very great and difficult in the hearts and minds of debaters is understanding the subject matter and recognizing that you have a debate. Sometimes you talk with someone for long, thinking that you had a debate, but you guys are either saying the same thing or there's no debate at all. You're saying opposite things in different, very wrong ways. So it's important to step back and define our terms. Probably those that are criticizing these things from hindsight, I love criticism. I want Southern Cameroonians to criticize the Swiss process or any process that will come from anybody or anything that will come from anybody, especially myself. But I want us to do it through using our intellect, not just our mouth. So the Swiss process, let's define a few terms. Switzerland is a country. I'm sure we can define that, what the country is. That's Switzerland. So that's the short for Swiss. Swiss is short for Switzerland. So let's go to defining terms like talks, because there are 4 components in this whole thing with the Switzerland. There is the talks, there is a process, there is mediation, and there is negotiation. Let's define quickly what talks are. This is actually dictionary definition.
But before we get there, Abdul, did you kind of get any sense from the criticism that we are talking about, leaving Swiss, that this thing is a sham? Did you get that impression?
No, please. It can never be a sham. How can it be a sham? How can someone say, come, I am leading a process, I'm initiating a process that will take you on a negotiating table with your adversary, and then you call it a sham? They have not said we are coming to negotiate for you. They are not saying come and take this from us. We want to start a process that will end up with you and your adversary on a table. It is up to you. If you have a case, it is up to you. It is up to you. It is our thing. It's not Switzerland's business. So can I go ahead and define these terms?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So talks are formal dealings or discussions. What are we having now? We are having talks with Switzerland, which means it's an open thing, recognized, open to the world, that we are having talks with the Swiss in a bid to end up in a negotiation. So that is what talks are. Why am I saying this? Because many people think that people are going to Switzerland to negotiate. No, nobody is going to Switzerland to negotiate. The second thing is a process. A process is a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular goal. So that is a process. This is a process of peace talk that the Swiss are initiating. The next thing now is mediation. What is mediation? It's intervention in a dispute in order to resolve a crisis. And then negotiation. Negotiation are discussions aimed at reducing or at agreeing on something. So now, why did I go to Switzerland?
We will be right back with the Devil on Mask.
Another place.
Hello, stop looking around. There's only one show out there. It's called Ambazonia Calling.
I went to Switzerland, number one, because someone has finally heard my cry. I've been crying for 3 years for mediation. You and I have been doing that. 8 million people have been doing that. And someone says, okay, we are going to mediate. This is a process we are starting. Come and listen. My only concern was security. If I come to Switzerland, will I be arrested in Switzerland? And soon as I said, no, your other friends and comrades have come, nothing has happened to them, I told them I'm coming. And as I went there, even before I went there, I thanked them for recognizing the fact that my people are dying, myself, I've lost my job, my parents are in bushes, our daughters are being raped. For recognizing it, thank you, sir, irrespective of the intention. The mere fact that they recognize it is important for me. I'm going to listen to you. I'm not stupid. But the bad thing, I would not like to listen alone. I would like to listen with my comrades. I would like to listen with someone who can hear what I'm not hearing, with someone who can ask what I'm not asking. And this is why I wonder, this dichotomy, which is respected, I respect the different ideas from our comrades asking questions, but we cannot imagine, Secretary Chris, I tell you that, look, I want money to do business. Are you still with me, sir?
Yes, sir.
And you ask me, how much do I need? And I tell you, I want $20 million or $10 million. You say, okay, Abdul, no problem. I will pay your flight for free. I will lot you in America. But this money is huge and it's a big thing. Come, let's talk on how I will give you this money and how you're going to repay me. And then I write you a letter of 15 pages or 30 pages asking you to explain yourself. Am I serious? No. We are the ones crying for help. These people have offered to help us in the process, not to take the process for us, but to help us in the process. Is it not our place to rush and listen to them?
Essentially, you are saying that this is a very, very legitimate process until it proves itself otherwise.
No, absolutely unnecessary. We cannot conclude with the first premise. Our first premise cannot be conclusions. We need to show the world, the international community particularly, that we are mature enough to face anyone with our case. Talk to them with a smile on our face and disagree with them on points we cannot agree with them. Walk out of any process if we are not comfortable. But we cannot do this from YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, from distant places or by email letters. We need to go, especially Secretary Chris, when the people are offering to sponsor your trip to come and see them, and you're claiming genocide, you're claiming torture, and people say we want to mediate, and you give them 100 and 1,000 conditions to meet with them the first time. I think we are overstepping our bounds. I think we are presenting ourselves as not being angry, as Cohen said. Professor Cohen said, we are not angry enough. I want us to unpack these statements. We are not angry enough means we don't know exactly what we want. Means we are not aware of the international platform. This is exactly what it is. But I'd like to share this with you and everyone who is listening. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse number 9 to 12. This is a good lesson for us. 2 are better than 1, the Bible says, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity one who falls on his own, because no one would be there to help him up. Also, if 2 of them lie together, they will keep themselves warm. But who can keep one person warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. This is what the Bible says.
Okay.
I'm wondering, we are Southern Cameroon, by and large, is a Christian nation, though it could be a secular one.
Right.
Do we actually believe God when we're in trouble, or do we even believe God at all? If we do, what do we do with verses like this? What do we do with verses like Amos 3:3?
I think we do. I think absolutely the overwhelming majority, including the Muslims, they do. We only have a few skeptics amongst us who I believe their problem is that if they are not on the steering, then any other person on the steering leading any other thing, the person is wrong.
We will be right back with the Devil on Mask.
So restoration train is our freedom train.
We've got to do it together, building trust amongst leaders and making sure we make compromises that can take the Ambazonian people to a new horizon.
Oh, Holy Spirit, lead us on the restoration journey of our liberty.
The message we are sending out to all other Ambazonian groups is that we have to work together, because it's only in working together that we would achieve what we want faster.
Oh, Holy Spirit, lead us on the restoration journey of our liberty.
If we do not do that, we are going to be having South Sudan.
So restoration train is our freedom train.
But let me ask you this very critical question. Were you given any financial remuneration or compensation for going to Switzerland, apart from your hotel taken care of, and I guess your air ticket? Were you giving any financial compensation by the Swiss?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I don't think anybody was given that, neither was I, sir. And if anybody thinks otherwise, why don't you just go there? I mean, many people have been invited. Why don't you go there and receive some funds also? Nothing was given, nothing at all. No. That is not what the Swiss is doing. But Secretary Chris, before you continue, I'd like to say one thing.
Okay.
We can be playing with these things, but people are dying back here.
Yeah.
I'm saying this, that even if it were Chad or France, the evil France, I call it evil, if they called me and said they want to start a peace process, I will go and listen to them. Absolutely. There is no nation on earth today that will support any people who go against a peace process. Nobody would support us from that premise. Does this mean we'll go and agree? Does this even mean here that I trust the Swiss above any Southern Cameroonian or HD? No. And by the way, let me get this clear. That process is not run by HD. It's a Swiss government process. Switzerland could have chosen any other organization in the world to manage the process for them, but they chose HD. Swiss is managing the thing through a peer called HD. HD was the humanitarian center for dialogue, was not created for your problem, Southern Cameroonians. It wasn't created because they saw you having a problem. This is what they do as an organization. They have been doing it, succeeded in some cases and have not succeeded in some cases. So, and we should understand, we are not the most important country in the world. And something can happen anywhere and the world will turn their back to focus there. We have to be careful. Does this mean we go and grab anything? No. I think the questions my comrades have raised are serious questions. I would like to have them ask these questions in my presence to the Swiss and HG. I would like to hear answers. And if they are not good answers, I'll walk out with my comrades. I will not stay in that room for another second. But we cannot achieve it from Facebook, from insult.
Okay.
I'm asking you guys,
all right,
those who hate and like it, if Switzerland cannot broker peace in the world today, irrespective of interest, please tell me countries that can do.
Let me also add, we have heard allegations of the Swiss recruiting restoration fighters on the ground to attend some Swiss talks somewhere. You are on ground zero. Have you heard anything or seen anything like this?
Everyone would know that the defense is not what I'm very aware of, and I will not deny anything. I will not deny anything. By the way, they have said that many white troops have been found in counties all over southern Cameroon. I will not deny anything from that angle, but at the same time, I will not do the fallacy of false dilemma or equivocation by saying that necessarily it's linked with the Swiss without having hard proof. I don't have any evidence for that, but I will not push it under the rug. At the same time, I will say that we should not push anything under the rug. We have to be vigilant. But I don't have any proof to confirm that the Swiss are, luring maybe fighters to go to some talks. Is that a possibility? I'll say yes. I'll say yes. But do I have any proof for that? I'll say no. Should we be vigilant? The answer is yes. Should we be vigilant and noisy? No. The vigilance actually goes against the principle of noise. When you're vigilant, you're silent.
We will be right back with The Devil Unmasked.
Since the days of John the Baptist, the kingdom of God suffered violence. Only the violent one takes it by force. Sure, underground king. Boom. We cry about what the pride. One tire about what why.
Women are the crying. We are the crying. About what they crying. We the crying.
We have parliamentarians and councillors resigning from the parties and deciding not to participate in their upcoming elections. What is the impact of this on those parties and on our territory as a whole?
There's some positive impact, but it doesn't move me a bit. It doesn't move me a bit. It didn't have to take this long for anybody to retreat to truth. Anybody who is doing it now amounts to fallacy, but it's good for them that they don't totally write their own history with their hands with a red pen or blood. So and again, we need to be sure that no one is playing pranks, because I don't trust politicians. I'm not a politician, but I don't trust them at all. So yes, it has some. There's a sound warning. Everyone feels that it's about time to realign with the people, and that's exactly what they have been cautious of. I hope that the people is at the center of their heart, not just some fear or some fear. Basically, the fear that their parties are losing grounds, especially SDF. They are losing a lot of grounds. So, but again, we have to be vigilant.
Back to the Swiss initiative. What would you say to fellow comrades who were initially part of that? What would you say to them who were part of it and then pull out with some of the excuses that we have made here?
I'll say that I'm begging. Let's not put our cards before the horse. We need to play our card as a team. Actually, the Quran says in chapter 13, verse number 11, Surah Arad, that God does not change the condition of a people until they do change themselves. And I think this is a very important information. And it's reflected also in Hebrew 10:24. We must pay attention to ourselves. We need to have our game. We need to have a critical mass, the winning team of Southern Cameroonians, not some group. And by the way, everyone I'm sure notices here, I'm ready to work with anyone. I don't work for anyone. But I recognize institutions in Southern Cameroon. So what I'm saying is we need to have our cards. We need to play our cards. Those that have backed out, I really want them to show me what pulled them out so that I don't continue. I would not like to be in any train that is not carrying Southern Cameroons. But I will not be out of a train simply because a few Southern Cameroonians decide to be stubborn and walk on foot instead of getting in a train which is faster. So let's have a uniform reason, a unanimous reason not to be anywhere, irrespective whether it is Swiss, Finland, America, France. Let's all have a unanimous reason. A unanimous reason does not mean a unified reason. It means a more collaborative reason. And this actually explains the civilization of the West, which is all liberalization. We must be liberal in our thinking if you want to win the sympathy of the West. I'm telling my comrades, we need to go, even if there are 20 countries calling to tell us that they want to mediate for peace, we need to go and listen. Look, we don't have to talk. We can just listen and go out.
We will be right back with The Devil on Mask. Ambazonia Calling. You are in the heart of the news shrine. Call us the Kalakuta Republic of Commentary, Opinion, and Editorials.
What do you make of the conception that people go to a lot of public detention centers or prison and they never come back the same? Are you changed?
Yeah, I'm very changed. I'm a very changed person.
How are you changed? When they say change, they mean are you compromised?
The word compromise has to be. Look, I've realized something in our revolution. We've copied a lot of words without knowing both philosophical and dictionary meaning. What do you mean compromise? Right here in Southern Cameroon, I'm compromised, and I was pretty much compromised when my phones were taken. I was hoping that there's no sensitive information that would jeopardize my revolution in it. Is that compromise? Yes.
Well, in this context, they talk about compromise in terms of what we believed before, in terms of your ideology.
Yeah, they need to draw lines. Am I a traitor? Are people compromised necessarily traitors? No. So, but now, what has changed in me? Look, Southern Cameroonians must understand this. I don't know how many Muslims, we all know, but we Muslims are really, really different in certain things. I am not that kind of person that money can buy. Money cannot buy me. If not, I will not even be here. The only thing that buys me is reason. Once you defeat my intellect reasonably, I follow you. That's simple. So what has changed in me is that I have become more radicalized and determined to see the end of justice for my people. Not after I see a woman of above 86 being treated like a criminal. Not after I see young boys who have been there for 18 months, 16 months, 1 year, 3 months without a lawyer. And then today, many people are texting me from the principal prison, women who have never seen a lawyer after 2 years. Not after what I've seen in that set. It has only made me just that it cannot take me more radicalized beyond my intellect. But the last thing I would stop doing is fighting for justice for the people of Southern Cameroon. So that what has changed in me is that I've also realized that sometimes to go fast, you need to slow down. And again, to see what is not, you need to gaze upon that which is. The only thing I see now is Switzerland trying to negotiate, trying to engage in a peace process. The rest of the world has been silent. I'm gazing on Switzerland. What has changed in me is that I've realized that we are fighting a military and diplomatic war.
Yeah.
The diplomacy is so important that we need to build up charisma, change language, speak the language that people understand, not the language that we want to please ourselves with likes on Facebook. It would not work. It will not work. We need to change these things. We need to speak and speak in the right manner at the right places. So that is what has changed in me, basically.
We will be right back with The Devil on Mask.
In other place.
Hello, stop looking around. There's only one show out there. It's called Ambazonia Calling.
If I may ask you, coming out of the detention facility, now you have your freedom at the comfort of your home. Do you go to bed every evening wondering, being afraid they may come after me again, they may pick me up again?
I've never been afraid of picking up. I've been afraid of elimination, premature death. I knew, look, anyone who thinks he's in this and nothing would happen to them is fooling themselves. I knew that what happened could happen. Yes, of course, I'm afraid because what is in that place is hell. But I'm not afraid because of the pains per se, but I'm afraid of what would happen to our revolution if people like myself and greater than me or even lesser than me are being silenced like that, especially when I see the kind of dichotomy in thinking, the kind of infighting, the kind of lack of collaboration that we exhibit. It makes me so sick. So yes, I'm scared for many things, but not for myself per se.
Now, I'm sure you have listened to some of the Western diplomats say, for example, you quoted Cohen. Cohen said, and many American politicians, diplomats, they have said, they think a federal system for Cameroon would resolve the conflict, and they are not very much looking at a free and independent Southern Cameroon. Do you see Ground Zero accepting anything short of a free and independent Southern Cameroon, in spite of what we hear from these diplomats?
Yeah, again, so this again brings me to what I'm saying. So Southern Cameroonians must learn this. I understand we want to be fast with the keyboard, we want to be fast with information processing, which is good in a revolution. But sometimes when talks come from diplomats, we want to take some step back and have our diplomats analyze them before we go on throwing strippy, cherry-picking statements and words which we cannot even define ourselves. We need to be careful with that. Amidst all the things they said, this is their conclusion. Cohen, all of them. What did they say? But they say at the end of the day, the people of Southern Cameroon have the right to self-determination. Did anybody hear that? Did anybody hear them saying that we have the right to self-determination? No country in the world will come out and outrightly tell you, we want you to divide. No country will say that. It's up to you to play your game and use your words, do what you want. They end up by saying that we have the right to self-determination. What is self-determination? In other words, they're telling us, it's your thing. How do you want to do it? We expect Cohen to come and tell the world that we should divide? We expect who would do that? Nobody would do that. It is for us to say that. Why should they be doing it when we even have our brothers who have transferred from federalism to special status? Why would Cohen tell you to separate when your brothers are shifting? I would like at the end of the day for the world to see that we admitted a process of peace and La Republique did not admit. Would Southern Cameroonians want the case to the reverse to be true, that La Republique admitted and we didn't? Look, we need to come together and we need to be there together so that if I'm making this mistake, we can rectify it and move along. You asked me a question, Secretary Chris, about those who went and left. I would like to answer a question that you're not asking about those who are going there.
Yeah.
About those who are going there like myself already. Those who are going there should not be dictating who else should join. That's number one. Those who are going there should represent Southern Cameroons and not anything else. People have gone earlier than some people, so they need to check a few things. And the Swiss don't know our comrades, so they check they do background checks through us. And to say something, Southern Cameroonians, listen to me. La République du Cameroon is with the Swiss process. I'll apologize if I'm wrong, but for now, that is it.
Good.
If you want to know.
Ambazonia will be developed not by those our parents call the long crayons, not those empty big book people who call themselves elites, but by the army of hard-working citizens willing to roll up their sleeves and get dirty.
The foreign and local NGOs and journalists suddenly crusading for schools' resumption are not doing so out of altruism, and would be hard-put to deny the charge of hypocrisy and self-interest.
Before I let you go, let me take this opportunity to ask you what you think about the special status that French Cameroon wants to give Ambazonia.
All right, I think it's an embarrassing position for our federalists, because absolutely the federalists are the ones who proposed that to La République de Cameroon. That's what I make out of the situation. So again, I've argued before that federalists are the most confused people. They have migrated from not knowing exactly what kind of federation they want. Is it 10, 4 or 2 states, to another mad thing called special status. You want to give special status? What is special status? Who do we get special status for? For weak and vulnerable regions. For example, La République has the right to give, for example, the East, the how do you call them? The pygmies in the East some special status because of their nature and because of maybe infertility in their land. They can also give it in far north, maybe in Mokolo, because there's no water to produce crops. You want to give a part of a state which is not, by the way, your state, that has fed you for 58 years special status? This is crazy. I'm telling you, I'm so ashamed of our comrades who even dare to think about such nonsense. I would like to give special status to La République in future. If we can relate, I would like to give them special status because they need it. They are the ones who need our education. We don't need their education. They are the ones who have been trying to change our language. We don't need to learn their language. They are the ones who need special status from anyone like us, not the other way around. But Southern Cameroons is not ready to be special status anywhere in the world. We are Southern Cameroonians. I was in India when special status was implemented on a state called Andhra Pradesh. That is actually a region that, because of under-education, a lot of religious climax, so they lack many things, and the state wants to give them subventions and other things that will make them meet up with other states. Not like special status America could give it in Alaska because of the climate situation. Not a country that has been feeding on another country and coming out to propose special status. Would you blame La République du Cameroon, Secretary Chris? The answer is no. Blame your brothers.
Yes. On television, you referred to the Prime Minister of French Cameroon as a headmaster going to lead a national dialogue. Has that occurred to you that could be the reason why you were abducted, not because you responded to the Swiss initiative?
Yeah, to silence my mouth, probably because I have a large mouth here. And then, but federalists called the attention to that. I hope I'm mistaken. But again, I read in the constitution of this country that there's freedom of speech. I mean, I've been asking for debate. Why don't come and debunk my statements? Why lock me up for what I've said? Why lock me up for expressing my mind? And I don't see how those amounts as insults. Those are, they are very strong adjectives to describe a person, but this is based on what I've seen for 3 years. So of course, if not the headmaster, who does that? How can your people be crying something else and you're going somewhere else? With the only reason we Secretary Chris, we live is because we represent something. Either you represent your family. Today is if my wife and children are totally elsewhere, I cannot be somewhere else. The best I can do is to convince them to join me. I cannot go elsewhere. That's why when Mama Grace cried in the jail, I asked myself, who the hell are you, Abdul Karim? If this woman can be crying here and that you will not say anything, who the hell am I? What is my life worth?
We will be right back with the Devil on Mask.
Another place.
Hello, stop looking around. There's only one show out there. It's called Ambazonia Calling.
And by the way, how did you know she was my mother?
Well, you look very much like her. And well, anyway, I knew that she was under detention, but you look very much like her.
Who did you meet first, my mother or my sister?
Oh no, your sister. I met her the first time they took me to do something they call sunbath, going to bask under the sun. I flashed over your sister, but I didn't recognize her then. But someone else told me that was her because she was caught. But your sister came to join us in the facility where we were like 18 days after I was in detention because she was somewhere else, where she explained to me later that she was being tortured. But she was brought like 3 cells away from mommy and like 12 cells away from me. So 18 days later. And
we have learned
she's a
that
strong woman, that lady.
And we have learned she underwent a hellish torture in that facility. Did she confess that to you?
Yeah, no, she said it. She said it openly. Yeah, she said, and she showed me scars. Please, I don't want to talk about this. Those are very painful pictures I don't want to bring back to my memory. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Abdul, for showing up. Any message, special message to this audience?
Well, again, I want to thank all of them for the support, the prayer, the togetherness that they showed me, especially during this trial period. And again, I want to thank the international community for the good work they are doing in trying to address our situation, in trying to direct us towards a peace process, which is the ultimate end, by the way. But to my comrades, I want to say that we must realize that we cannot succeed if we don't collaborate. This is my humble understanding. And I keep telling myself every time I pray that I am wrong. We can't. I'm not trying to keep confusing unity and collaboration. I'm not calling for unity. Yeah, we have to collaborate. We need to have a winning team. I'm not saying a group has to have a winning team. We Southern Cameroonians need our winning team. We need to know our cards and play them right. Look, football is not an African game, it's a Western game. To play it, you must play their rules. You must play with them. It's likewise diplomacy. We need to stop insulting ourselves. Correct me at the back. I will take your correction. If you correct me arrogantly, I'll not even listen to you.
Right.
We need to change all of these things. We need to be one. We need to focus. Greed must go away. Ego must go away. We must drop those horses. Those horses we are riding are in Genesis chapter 6 when we had the giants. Let's at least come to the horses we have today if we choose to ride on horses. But we are very on high horses. We have to stop it. Also, surrogacy is a bad thing. Those who think that by insulting others, using others' name, are doing good to the person they are fronting, it's wrong. You can just correct people without insinuating. My brothers and sisters, the only thing I know is what I know. I don't know anything more than what I know. And it is the same for you. People keep thinking they know a lot. They can analyze and reason a lot. You don't know more than what you know. And the only thing you know is what you've read on this Facebook. Some have done better. Some have met diplomats. Some are leaving it on ground zero. Don't sit behind there and throw this insult. It doesn't work. It will not help us. Look at the comments coming from the international community that we are not angry enough, that we are other Cameroonians. Do you make some sense out of this? I do. We are losing it. We had good chances. There are things one cannot say here. I'm going to share some of the things I have in me with all the leaders I can meet. I can meet, not I can tell on telephone. But things are on the bad side for us because of this very childish attitude.
All right. Thank you so very much, Abdul.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Because you have your army of occupation out in West Cameroon, you believe that when the people will rise, even if you took the whole of the French army and added to yours, you will never bring them down.
And I call on all Cameroon soldiers to lay down their arms within Ambazonia and to turn their arms against the very system that has made them slaves in the land of their birth.
For more stories from around the world, go to the World Wide Web at themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, I hate to do this, but did I not severely warn Kunkuma already? Did I not ask you not to imitate any of these young people who are wearing their trousers as low on their legs as possible? They call it fashion these days, whereas what it really amounts to is indecent exposure, especially if the wrinkled flesh they just want to put on display does not have any John and Omeri excited. Seriously, did I not tell you to wear your trousers high, above your navel every time you leave the house? How come news got to me that Grand Katika Fongola was wearing his trousers at the lower end of his butt, allowing the trousers at one point to drop to his knees and then all the way to the ankles and then to hit the floor? Has the father of Bread and Sardine Republic no decency? Does Ngunkuma not know that in this day and age, it is not a compliment when our people say you're draws the show, even if the very young first MANYU wanted you to act like one of those young yours out there. Did Nkunkuma have to do it in front of foreign dignitaries gathered for a summit in the heart of Angola? Did Nkunkuma not get the memo which said everyone is not begging to kiss Nkunkuma's behind every day of the week, twice on Sunday? Come on now. I would fully understand if what you explain happened is that the diaper worn under that polo dress got so full with the weight of wastewater that it forced those pants to fall to the floor. There is no way, of course, I will hold it against the Emperor of Angola if what he wanted to do was to just show off the Emperor's new clothes. People like the First Slave and Atango, they really cannot wait for you to organize the striptease of Angola. The sneak peep that the Emperor gave in front of foreign dignitaries the other day only whets the appetite for the show to come. Unless, of course, and this would be another good reason for having those trousers hit the floor, did Nkunkuma think he was passing gas and instead did heavy duty, and the weight of the awesomely stinking poop snapped the button on the belt, forcing those pants to obey the law of gravity? I am afraid that pants falling to the floor has to be a prophetic message. However high Nkunkuma thinks he sits on the highest thrones, the time cometh when what goes up must come down, when what's gonna be, as a musician from Nigeria once sang. As usual, the censorship board of Bread and Sardine Republic kicked into action and did such a fine job. The ethno-fascists of Grand Camarades Gestapo-type police jumped into action with the speed of lightning, rounding up SIM cards and memory cards from still and video cameras that may have recorded the Adam and Eve in the garden scene. Nkunkuma shall henceforth be remembered as the founder, I think Famandongo would call you the creator, of what has to be titled the male Takenberg movement of Angola. Shriveled bones, wrinkled skin, wet and soiled diapers, all in one, 3 for the price of 1. The Takenberg show, starring Nkunkuma, one message to the world. The Emperor is not naked. His pants did not fall to the floor. His Christmas clothes arrived early. I got your back, Nkunkuma. I will remind the First Slave and Atango that you have cancelled any further performances by the striptease of Angola. Did anyone see the Emperor's new clothes, please? This is the First MANYU asking. Could you return them? In advance, thank you.
From our studios here in Washington, D.C., our producer is Jeff McCoy. Our music today is from Ken Wanaku, the monk from Balikumato, William Ford, an ambassador of blessed memory, Eric Matisse on the web at soundimage.org, and Prince Adjoa Alemanji of Ajam Sonic Kitron, USA. Ambazonia Calling is a joint production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. You can find us on the web at www.themissionstribune.com, www.compassfreepress.com, and www.africafreedomnetwork.com. Next Sunday is another day. Until then, keep the spirit, keep the faith, keep up the fight for justice and independence for Ambazonia. Stay Amba strong.